Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to a new StarCraft video. Today I'm going to be answering all of your StarCraft related questions that you guys asked to me on Twitter. So I've gotten a couple of these kind of questions. Lowko, how have you been dealing with mech nowadays? Actually, this is one of the more tricky subjects because Terrans, they are really enjoying their mech play nowadays, especially on maps such as Frost LE. Honestly, the thing that I've been doing the most is just play incredibly greedy after realizing that my opponent was going for such an early usually it's like a triple factory play. Most of the time, whenever a Terran player goes for mech, they actually won't move out until they're pretty much just maxed out and have all the upgrades that they want. So most of the time, I will be cancelling my Spire, which is usually building considering I'm scouting at Overseers, and I will always take a fort base pretty much right away, while getting my infestation pit up, because the most efficient way I have personally found to deal with mech is going to be Swarm Hosts, Vipers, and usually some sort of anti-air, which either is going to be Hydralisk or Corruptor. It is sort of the same like you're actually playing against a Protoss player, but keep in mind this army composition is hard to control. If you're, let's say, below like Platinum or Diamond, I would instead advise you to go for Roach Hydralisk Viper, which is just much easier to control than all of these Swarm Host shenanigans you have to be dealing with. Keep in mind you need a ton of static defense either way though, because of all the Terran drops with Hellbats and Hellions and all that kind of awesomeness. Is there a good way to deal with a supply into command center into Rex? Honestly, this is the most standard of standard Terran openers nowadays on 4-player maps. It's basically a command center first, right? And there are definitely a couple of ways you could deal a bunch of damage with this, but most of the time, honestly, I've just found playing even greedier helps out the most. I'm definitely someone who likes the macro and just sit back and let the Terran come at me, but if you really want to deal with it, you could go for like a Roach Bailing Bust. Considering the Terran went that greedy, he is likely gonna go for a greedy third command center as well. But most of the time, you will only realize he went for a command center first after getting your own hatchery first out, which is pretty much just as greedy when you think about it. Have I ever tried going Speedling Hydra into Roaches versus Protoss? Most definitely, yeah, this is one of my favorite strategies. Now, the most important thing to realize that if you delay your Roach Warren, you're gonna pretty much just straight up lose versus any kind of like gateway aggression, maybe off of 2 bases, maybe off of 1 base, you'll pretty much just straight up lose. So most of the time when I'm not completely 100% sure my opponent is going for something like double Stargate or a single Stargate, I will be throwing down the Roach Warren either way. I might not make any Roaches, but I'm gonna be making it just in case there's a bunch of Zealots at my third base and I can't deal with them, because my Hydralisk then is still in production, right? So usually a good timing to get your Roach Warren, which I would advise you to get in every single game, is right between the 6 to 6.5 minute mark, which is usually going to keep you safe whenever your opponent went for a quick Nexus play, so that's either like a Gateway Expo, or sometimes even a Nexus first, depending on what the Protoss is up to. However, one of the switches that I've been working on the most is actually going Ling Hydralisk into something much more awesome, a Massive Mutalisk switch. So that is something you could also keep in mind, which would mean you actually need to start upgrading the armor upgrade first. In the evolution chamber, it will both benefit Zerglings and Hydralisk, and considering you're gonna be spending your gas on Mutalisk later, the Zerglings are gonna benefit from that more. But other than that, it is definitely one of the most favorite openers that I have found so far in Zerg vs Protoss. Lowko, how am I supposed to spend my minerals more efficiently? Well, usually, as long as your injects are good, you will have a pretty easy time spending all your minerals. That said, if you're probably below like Gold League, your injects will not be very good. I'm sorry if I hurt anyone's feelings right there, but honestly, injects are crucial. I miss mine all the time. I see pro gamers missing their injects all the time as well. It's just such an important thing. If you see yourself stacking up minerals, check the replay and check if your queen injects were okay. They were likely a whole lot off. Hi Lowko, when did you start playing Zerg? Well, honestly, I picked Zerg right away. I actually got access to StarCraft II in the beta of Wings of Liberty, which is a whole while back, and I started playing Zerg pretty much right away. I tried the other races a little bit, but then I started watching live streams, and honestly, I saw Idra play and I was like, I want to be that good. So I figured, okay, I must be playing Zerg as well. It is still the race up to date that I enjoy playing the most. It's just my favorite race. But then again, it's pretty hard and pretty frustrating sometimes when, for example, you just straight up die to Blue Flame Hellions, right? As a new Zerg player, how do I actually improve the fastest? Now, this is a pretty important question because it's something that a lot of players are trying to figure out. Honestly, if you're completely new to StarCraft II, what I would advise is just simply playing random, right? Random is probably going to be the most enjoyable because you actually learn a little bit about all matchups, and eventually you will figure out what race you really want to be playing. That said, the easiest way to simply improve is following a build order spot on. If you manage to copy a Grandmaster level player's build order completely to the second, you will obviously not stay in bronze for very long, right? Because you're simply that good already. That said, it is pretty damn tricky. So what I'd advise you to do is simply open up custom games and practice out build orders without playing versus a real opponent. It is likely going to benefit you the most, and honestly, it's also the most fun and the least frustrating. Once you actually have a build order completely thought out and you don't need to think about it anymore, then jump to the ladder and actually start playing it versus real opponent. Is playing off-races a good idea if you're a gold level Zerg? Well, honestly, yeah. It is going to help you out a ton if you understand how the other players are actually looking at you as a Zerg player. For example, I didn't realize until I actually played Protoss that they are very limited once they've actually chosen attack path. For example, if a Protoss player decides to go for a Stargate, they can't just dish out all of a sudden Colossus. And that is those little tiny things that are actually very important to realize if you want to improve as Zerg. So short answer, yes, most definitely. Besides it being a lot of fun, it will be very valuable as well. So yeah, those are the questions that I will be answering today. Make sure you actually click the Twitter link in the description below, hit that follow button right there. Make sure to leave a comment right below that like button if you want to see more of this kind of content. And other than that, I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! And what went wrong in this Zerg vs Zerg? Now, Choking is a subscriber on Twitch TV, and I will actually start doing this much more regularly. Every now and then on the